Hello and welcome to CyberWise, Cyber Savvy Made Simple, the podcast on a mission to demystify the world of cybersecurity and keep you safe online. We're your hosts, Dan and Estefan. We're super excited for our first podcast episode, but before we get started, Dan, how are you doing today?
Doing good, thanks, mate. Let's get going. What are we discussing today?
Awesome. We have quite an insightful topic today. We're going to be diving headfirst into the world of security awareness training, or SAT. I guess before we get started, Dan, let's start at the very beginning. What is SAT exactly?
It's education designed to teach individuals, employees in businesses, or individuals themselves all about the various types of cyber threats that are out there. So cyber criminals are constantly trying to find new ways to get into our devices, get into our information, get into our bank accounts, and security awareness training is educating and raising awareness amongst individuals out there on how to avoid falling victim to many of these scams and many of these types of attacks. And when we talk about scams, we're talking about phishing, malware, ransomware, passwords, how to be better safe online. So there's a whole range of topics that are included in security awareness training.
And Dan, on that, you mentioned a lot of important topics there: phishing, malware, ransomware, business email compromise, or BEC. Are there certain topics that are more important than others, or is it a combination of everything working together to build a cyber savvy workforce?
Yeah, a lot of companies or a lot of people. There's a big focus on phishing. We hear a ton about phishing in the media and in different articles, and everyone focuses and kind of thinks that like that's the biggest threat, and it certainly is. Email threats, coming into your mailbox are huge. It's a massive reason for cyber attacks and people clicking on the wrong things or doing stupid things with emails. But there's a whole bunch of other things that people need to be aware of. Everything from protecting your mobile devices or how to browse online safely, and we're seeing all sorts of different social engineering techniques over and above phishing. So all of these, should be included and should be part of a training program or building awareness in an organization. It isn't just phishing, but phishing is super important as well.
And when you talk about SAT, what problem is it really trying to solve? I know there's a lot of stats out there, and like you said, you could look at the media for any big data breaches or phishing attacks recently. And I think the biggest stat that stands out for me, right off the top of my head, is that Verizon came out with a report not too long ago, and they mentioned that 90% of successful cyber attacks are down to human error. So I guess the question is, what problem are we trying to solve with SAT?
Yeah, cool. So cybersecurity is a huge issue. People know that. Everyone knows that. It's been around now for quite a bit of time. Cybercrime is a global issue that is hitting individuals and hitting businesses alike. And so the cybersecurity industry exists to try and sort of provide controls and preventative measures for cybercrime. A lot of businesses today to focus on the technology, your firewalls, your scanning, antivirus, anti-malware, all of that sort of really fancy technical preventative measures in the industry. And unfortunately, a lot of these attacks come down, as you say, to a result of human error. So despite those technical controls, despite the technical enhancements, what the cyber criminals are actually doing is they're trying to bypass all of that and bypass those firewalls, bypass all of that protection, and go through a weak link, which is the uneducated or unaware human or end user at the end of that. So, why try bash down a door when, I can get someone to open up the back door for me, or I can get somebody to give me the keys to the door. It's a lot easier to try and do that. And unfortunately, humans are a lot of the time very complacent when they're online and they're working. A lot of the time, they just don't care about security or it's not their business. So why should they worry about it? It is somebody else's problem. And then thirdly, like humans are super easily conned. we're super gullible, and we're going to get conned out of anything left, right, and center if you give us something convincing enough. So cybercrime is costing businesses a ton of money, and a lot of small businesses aren't surviving cyber attacks. So the problem is getting worse, and that, in a nutshell, is what security awareness training is trying to solve. It's trying to reduce that cyber risk for businesses out there by educating employees, making them think a little bit more about security, try and bring cybersecurity sort of front of mind for organizations, and build secure culture, and really just help businesses survive this huge cyber epidemic that's happening right now.
And I think it's also quite important to note that this isn't just for businesses; it's also for people at home. What you learn is also applicable for your home use as well, because you're always under attack, or there's always the possibility of being under attack. But I think with that being said, let's look at how SAT can be rolled out. Dan, is SAT always online? Can it be done in person? How is it usually rolled out in terms of training?
It used to be done in person. Businesses who started doing this were including cybersecurity training as part of their onboarding courses or their annual compliance training. But it's definitely moved more into the online realm now. It's by doing it online, we're able to bring in a lot more media elements, a lot more video, a lot more animation, a lot more interactive e-learning experiences that are a lot more enjoyable for the end user. Sitting in a classroom for hours on end, having an instructor try and get this stuff over to a classroom of people who don't care and are on their phones and are wanting to be anywhere else in the world other than in that classroom is not really the best use of anyone's time, and it's certainly not going to change behavior or get this type of subject over. And so we've definitely seen a lot more success by doing it online, and by spending a ton more time in focusing on what is the best way of delivering this content. So the classroom-based instructor-led learning is not the best medium of delivering this type of training anymore. And it's also not conducive to companies that have got workforce spread out globally or across a country or in multiple locations, and certainly not to those organizations who are doing remote working now. So keeping things online keeps things much more flexible. It allows employees to get their training done and complete their training and go through this type of awareness training when they have the time available, where they want to do it, and on a device that they want to do it. So it's definitely much more conducive to better learning and changing behavior, because people enjoy the training a lot more.
Exactly, and I guess sitting in a classroom, it's quite difficult to report back on the effectiveness of the training. And a lot of the times it comes down to executive buy-in in terms of training. And I think with online, it's much easier to have that transparency, to see the performance of employees and how campaigns and training's going.
Yeah, for sure. So, you're always going to get one or two people in your organization that maybe really struggle with it. Maybe they just don't get it and it's too complex for them, or it's super technical. And if you're running quizzes and you're running little assessments, or you're running, reinforcement assessments or whatever, you'll be able to pick up on those as a training manager or an IT or security manager. You're going to be able to pick up on those few problem children. And, through reporting, you can see how they're progressing or not. You can see how they're scoring in different quizzes. You can see on what they're struggling with. And you can maybe give a little bit more attention to those individuals and maybe help explain a particular topic to them where they maybe not picking up on that, and really help them out a little bit more. And I think those type of people would get completely lost in a crowded classroom where they just keep themselves to themselves, tick that box, attend the class and not worry about it again. But they're certainly not going to be able to apply what they've learned because they don't get it. So it definitely, as you say, with the reporting side of things, it helps a lot.
Yeah, Dana, we've really discussed now, what it is, but let's dissect a bit. I came across a report that was released last month by Cybersecurity Ventures, And something that really stood out to me is that the projected value of the SAT market is projected to hit 10 billion US dollars annually by 2027. Obviously, that's a massive amount, but I guess this just illustrates the problem we're facing at the moment and what companies out there are facing. Obviously, everything is shifting online, everything is being moved to cloud, etc. So it's really a big problem that companies are facing. So also in this report, it was mentioned that there's a 15% year-on-year growth within the SAT market. Dan, what do you think could be the catalyst for that?
Well, compared to the rest of the cybersecurity industry or rest of the tech industry, 10 billion global spend is not really that much. It's still a very, very niche industry. It's quite small, but if you consider that in 2020, the global annual spend on security awareness training, I think according to Gartner, was only $700 million in 2020. So in a period of 7 years, it's grown from 700 million, forecasting out to a $10 billion growth. Like, that's a pretty fast growing industry, a fast growing little niche part. And what is happening is we've seen adoption of security awareness training as a core security control as part of a wider cybersecurity program. More and more businesses are starting to identify that human element as like really, really key to reducing their risk. And this has sort of mainly been in the enterprise space. Your large organizations, big global enterprise organizations, like all of them are doing this now. Every single one of them are seeing the value of training employees and security awareness training. And now in 2023 or 2022, 2023, we're seeing this more in the mid-size organization as well. They're really starting to see value in this. And that's either because they've been hit by cyber attacks that have been caused by employees or caused by some form of social engineering or human error, and they really need to address it. Or they've heard horror stories of other companies that are seeing this as well. So that could be a driver. Another key driver is compliance and regulation. So a lot of data protection laws, a lot of compliance, security compliance regulations and security certificates are wanting to see security awareness training, employee training, that type of thing. The cyber insurance industry is another one. Cyber insurance is exploding. The demand for cyber insurance is going through the roof right now as more and more companies are trying to get coverage and making sure that their coverage for that rainy day when a cyber attack does happen, and they can rely on an insurance company to help them out and take a lot of that risk off them. But what a lot of the insurers are doing is asking questions. They want to see that their insureds are taking cybersecurity seriously, that they're putting all the right controls in place, that they are having cyber maturity really around their security programs. And they're asking the question, are you training your employees? Are you rolling out security awareness training? So a lot more companies are starting to adopt it because the insurance companies want to see it as well. So there's a lot of demand for this coming, and it's driving the industry a lot. And we're seeing a huge uptake across global markets and different sectors as well. It's taking off.
Absolutely, Dan. I have to agree with you there. I think a lot of what we've been chatting about now is more focused on your developed markets, so US, Europe, Australia. So let's hit home a bit. Let's speak a bit more about the African continent. I know Orange Cyber Defense released their 2023 Security Navigator report, obviously very focused on the African continent, and it's quite eye-opening if you read it to see the immaturity of the market here at home. And one thing that really, really stood out for me is the median age of the population within Africa is around about 18. And, with the internet penetration of around 44%, majority of that 44% coming from mobile phones, what do you think is the implications of this in terms of the immaturity and the threats of cybersecurity for the future of the continent?
It's an interesting point, Es. I mean, cybersecurity is always going to be a problem. And cyber criminals are certainly going to go after markets that are more vulnerable. They're going to go after markets and areas and regions that they know that they can get success. Africa is definitely going to be a target for them. It's going to be a huge focus for them. The African market is certainly a developing space, and it's digitization, the digitization of the continent and digitization of the economy across the continent has been sped up significantly after COVID, probably by like a decade. And then with digitization, then comes the need and the recognition for securing that digitization. If we're taking the entire continent's economy online, and we're going to the cloud, and we're building apps, and we're building economy around applications, around software, around tech, which we're seeing exploding across the continent. With that is going to be the need to secure all of that. And we're definitely behind some of the other regions like the US or Europe, but we're not that far behind places like Australia or Australasia, Southeast Asia. We're not that far behind them. It's quite surprising how some of those markets are still quite immature when it comes to cybersecurity. Africa is definitely going to catch up, but it's certainly going to be vulnerable to it until it does. And the different governments really need to take a lead on this and really start pushing this and raising awareness. And we've seen this from different African governments that are pushing this within their public sectors and starting to really roll this out as strong as possible across their private sectors as well. But it's going to be a bit of time coming, but it's going to be a great market to be working in, because they are going to be taking this seriously very soon, and it's going to be growing significantly.
Absolutely. Now, I think that was a great intro into, I guess, our next point of discussion, which is how to make a SAT campaign successful. And especially at Goldfish, we say often that SAT is cybersecurity marketing, and that you should approach your campaigns the same way you would as a marketing team, really. And what do you mean by this is that rolling out a campaign over a 12-month period or 12-month regular training will help you build a more mature security culture within your organization. But what I really want to know is, Dan, what makes or breaks a successful SAT campaign within your organization?
Yeah, it's when we're talking about security awareness training and in the cyberspace, we're not talking about a tick box exercise. We're not trying to do this for compliance. We're not trying to do this because somebody says that you need to. It's actually a cybersecurity control. It's part of the security program. You've got your antiviruses, you've got your firewalls, you've got your scanning tools, you've got your, all these different technical controls are there in place to try and reduce cyber risk. And that's what security awareness is. It is an actual control to try and reduce the likelihood that you're going to get attacked. And if you do get attacked, it's also there to reduce the impact of that attack through training, through education, through culture, through awareness. So therefore, we need to make it as effective as possible. It can't just be throwing all your employees in a classroom, giving them death by PowerPoint for a couple hours, ticking that box, and then cool, we're done. Because that's not going to solve any problem. It's not going to reduce your cyber risk. You're going to be exactly where you were the day before with regards to vulnerability to cyber attacks. So it has to be done properly. And I guess some of the key factors that play a role in making this as successful as possible is looking at it from a culture point of view. It's not just training. It's more than that. It's trying to build the conversation. It's making sure that everyone is taking part in it. If you look at health and safety in the workplace, this was something that just didn't exist before the 90s or maybe late 80s. No one really gave a shit about health and safety. It was go out, get the job done, and get it done as quick as possible. If you get a little bit hurt, put a Band-Aid on it and we'll crack on. Now, health and safety has changed completely. Every single organization in the world is focused on looking after their people. And it's a conversation with everyone in the organization. It's a huge focus. Nothing happens without discussing health and safety and looking after the individuals. This is now sort of 21st century health and safety, where we need to start building this conversation, and everyone in the organization needs to start talking about this, and it needs to be a topic of discussion on a regular basis, not just sort of once a year. And so, leading on from that, communication is everything with security awareness training. You can be rolling out your training, whether it's in modules or videos or presentations, however you want to do it. You can be doing simulated phishing, you can be doing different quizzes, you can be doing all sorts, but it needs to be part of a much wider communication plan, a communication program. It needs to be including your marketing team, your communications team, your executive team. Everyone needs to be preaching cybersecurity and cyber safety, and it needs to be something that the organization takes on a huge role. And everywhere you're looking, from your digital display boards to the poster boards to the newsletters to the weekly updates to screensavers, all of that needs to include the message about staying safe online. Using good passwords, being aware of what you click on. All of this needs to be constantly reminding employees about staying safe online and keeping cyber safety front of mind. So communication is huge. Executive buy-in, it comes with that. If we can't get the leadership team and the big bosses in any organization, doesn't matter how big it is, if we can't get the bosses to buy into this and to understand this and to really appreciate the importance of training up employees and building a secure culture, well, we failed from the start. If they don't care about it, nobody else is going to care about it. So we need the leaders to really take that front role and be talking about it and leading the charge on talking about security awareness, leading by example. Really having the management team and the leadership team owning this, making sure that their teams are taking part and being compliant with the training programs that are being rolled out. So getting executive buy-in is super key to it as well. What's another one? Content. Content is huge. If your content sucks, no one cares. We are inundated in today's age with great content. I mean, YouTube is full of great stuff. Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok even. I'm not on TikTok, can't stand it. But you got all these social media platforms. We've got YouTube, we've got Netflix, we've got, and it's just content. And we are inundated with great quality, world-class content. If you think that you're going to get your employees to listen to 30 minutes of how to create passwords on some boring PowerPoint presentation, you've got another thing coming. They're just not going to care. It's really about how we deliver that message to them, how we can make that as relatable, as personal, as fun, and engaging as possible, because content is everything. If you're going to come back to the communications piece, no marketing team in the world, no advertising team in the world is going to try and put out an advertising campaign where the content sucks, because they know it's not going to work. It's not going to change behavior. It's not going to get the consumer to buy what you're trying to sell. And we are trying to sell cybersecurity. We're trying to sell safe behavior, good online behavior. We're trying to sell that. The content behind that marketing campaign is what is key. And so content's everything. And that's not just the quality of the training we're putting together. It's the quality of the videos, the quality of the newsletters we're putting out, the posters, the infographics. Everything we're doing around this needs to be cool. It needs to be relatable. It needs to engage with the audience. Figure out who that audience is, and adjust your content accordingly. Because if you've got, a company who lives on TikTok or lives on Instagram, or they're on YouTube, they're going to be expecting a certain quality of material, a certain quality of content. And if you're not getting it to them, they're not going to pay attention. They're going to flick through it as quick as possible and get back to their work. So content is huge. And then finally, make it fun, make it an enjoyable experience. Put a bit of effort into this. There are a ton of ways where you can make training of any kind slightly more enjoyable than what your workforce has experienced in the past. Gamification is something that a lot of organizations are playing with, are using. We're incentivizing it. The better you do on your training, the better you do in your quizzes, the better you do in your fishing simulations, the more chance you'll have of winning prizes, or getting a shout out, or getting listed in a leaderboard. However it looks, incentivize it. Use the carrot, not the stick. Because the minute you start saying to employees, if you don't do this, there will be repercussions, everyone turns off. Nobody cares anymore about your training because now you're being a dick. And we don't care about that. There's this corporate culture of, we need to comply with this and you must comply with this because the company needs it and you need to play your part or else, well, everyone turns off to that. Whereas if you can make it more enjoyable and there is incentive and the better you do or the more you take part, we can shine on cyber hero programs, or we can give incentives through prizes or leaderboards or stuff like that. It works way better. So those are a few ways that you can make security awareness training much more successful in an organization.
And Dan, for the people that are thinking now and looking at getting a SAT solution, is there a type of checkbox that they can work through? Not saying that SAT is a checkbox like we spoke about earlier, but is there a list of things people could work through when deciding on what solution really works for them?
Yeah, sure. So in the security awareness training space, there are quite a few vendors, quite a few companies specializing in security awareness training. And it's definitely worth doing a bit of research out there. There's varying degrees of what is being delivered, the complexity of the solutions that are out there. There's definitely varying degrees in the quality of content. So that's something that managers want to be looking into. How difficult is it to actually deploy these solutions? Do you have your own learning system that your company uses? If so, maybe an off-the-shelf learning system is not going to do it for you. Maybe you just need content. If you don't have anything, if you're a small business and you don't have a learning management system, well, then you're going to need a full SAT solution. You're going to need a full security awareness provider that delivers the platform, the content. And phishing simulations are not the be all and end all. As I said, there's a lot more to security awareness training than just phishing. But having phishing simulations and being able to run a simulated attack on your organization is a great way to test the vulnerability and actually be able to see vulnerability of your organization, see how vulnerable they actually are to getting tricked into opening these emails, clicking on the links, submitting login information. You can actually then see who your problem children are, who are more vulnerable. It's also a great way for your employees and your learners to experience what a real life phishing email actually looks like, because you can tell them all day long what to look out for. But in their busy lifestyle, in their busy day that they've got in the office, just another email popping up in their mailbox, 1 out of 100, 1 out of 500 mails a day, they suddenly have something pop up in the mailbox. Well, how much attention are they actually paying to that? And we can test that, and you can see that, and they can experience it themselves. And you can make it fun as well. You can gamify it. You can make it enjoyable. The simulated phishing side of things. So that's something to look for out there. And then how you deliver it, it depends on the size of your company. It depends on, have you got a dedicated security awareness training manager? And if so, maybe you want a more complex solution that person can focus on and make their own and have a full platform for them to play with. Maybe you're a really small company and you're a single IT manager. Maybe you don't even have an IT manager. In that case, there are some great managed service provider companies out there. There are dedicated cybersecurity companies who will actually deliver the service for you. they will run training programs, they'll run phishing simulations for you. And that's a great option for your smaller businesses, so that you can actually outsource this completely to another company. And they can just provide great reports to you on a monthly basis on how your training program's going, how your phishing simulation program is going. So that's another option. So it really just depends on what resources you've got available, and then just do some research into what's out there. And then finally, a final feature, reporting, is key. Not only measuring the reporting from your phishing simulations, that's key. That's always a key metric, not only on how many users are getting phished and how many users are clicking or failing phishing simulations, but how many are actually showing good behavior, how many are actually reporting this to your internal security teams or internal IT teams. That's a really key feature. So make sure that your solution has that feature, and then make sure it's got a good reporting feature tracking how training is going, tracking how phishing is going, so that you can present those training reports to your executive team to show progress. How, as an organization, have you progressed your awareness? How have you reduced your vulnerability over time to cyber attacks through training? And you can show all of that through reporting, and that's really key to have as well. So make sure that whatever SAT solution you're looking at, that's available, and definitely one to look out for.
And then, just before we end off this episode, let's discuss a bit the future of SAT. Obviously, like we've discussed over and over, that the only real way to protect your organization is to educate, train, and reinforce your first line of defense, which is essentially your employees. What are your predictions going forward in terms of the world of SAT in the coming years?
Yeah, I mean, every cybersecurity company out there is maybe going to preach and market about how they are the silver bullet. Buy our product and that's all you need. Security awareness training is definitely not that. It's super important. We've discussed how important it is addressing this human element, but it goes hand in hand with the technical controls. It goes hand in hand with good security teams who are going to be monitoring, who are going to be reacting. It goes hand in hand with the full suite of cybersecurity products for that defense in depth that they talk about in the security industry. So SAT is super important. Educating employees is super important. Reducing that human vulnerability is super important, but it isn't the be all and end all. It is part of a much bigger program. So I guess any vendor that tells you all you need is security awareness training is full of shit. But the future, mate, it's constantly changing. It's super exciting. The vendors out there, the content quality is constantly improving. So that's getting really cool. There's some really great content coming out, and we're going to see constant improvement, enhancement there. Personalized learning journeys. Not every learner is the same. The cyber maturity of different learners in an organization will vary greatly. The risk of different end users will vary greatly depending on what access they have to data, what access they have to different systems, who they are in an organization, what their role is in an organization. We can't treat everyone equally, and therefore the training needs to be slightly different for those individuals. And so we're definitely going to see more personalized. We're going to see targeted just-in-time training where your training providers start integrating more with those technical solutions where, if some dodgy emails do pop up in your mailbox, well, actually, you're going to be assigned just-in-time training just to educate you a little bit more about what to look out for maybe in those emails. If, some integration with password managers or integration with different technical controls where as you behave differently online or with different apps and different systems, there's going to be education and training to back that up and to help you on your journey, to help you make that better decision going forward. So we're definitely going to see that as an enhancement coming up. And then we're also going to see a focus is on just the training and just the reducing business risk, I think a lot more companies we're going to see starting to focus on individual personal cyber behavior and individual personal training to help individuals in their personal lives, on their personal devices, on their personal accounts, in their personal world. There's going to be a lot more focus on that as well to make it more personal, more individual. And then finally, I think we're definitely going to see a move by, in particular, the banking industry or the financial industry. I think instead of this type of training being focused and delivered primarily to employees as a means of reducing business risk, we're also going to see it starting to be delivered to consumers. So a bank is going to start focusing really heavily on educating their customers, because they're going to get to a point where they can't deal with their customers getting scammed every single day and having to reimburse customers who are getting constantly scammed and constantly defrauded and losing out to billions every year because of cybercrime. The focus a lot for these financial organizations and insurance companies maybe, and different industries, they're going to start educating their consumers a lot more. So it's not going to be employee focus. That's still going to be a huge part, but consumer focus, customer focus is going to be huge for a lot of these financial organizations as well that are losing out. So I definitely see those few points there, where we're going to see over the next 12, 18 months in our space.
Awesome, Dan. I think that just about wraps up this episode. So yeah, thank you to everyone for tuning in. And remember to stay safe out there. Dan, thank you so much for your time and for tuning in and for all your insights. Have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Nice one, Ace. Thanks very much, mate. Cheers.
Cheers.